studying computer science. His research interest is in augmented reality for agriculture. So I'll hand over to Wennan.
Uh, Hi everyone, my name is Wennan, just from the Australian National University. And today I just come here to represent for our team to talk about this project, which is called the Reducing Latency in a Collaborative Augmented Reality Survey. So in our project, the research question is, can we reduce the latency while sharing the plant data of the plant information and the plant location for the greenhouse workers while working collaboratively in a greenhouse? And in our project, we mainly focus on two parts. One is the tracking technology, and the other one is the data transmission technology. So for the tracking technology, there are current two methods that we can use. One is the macro-based tracking, and the other one is the word tracking technology from the Microsoft HoloLens device. So with the help of the HoloLens device, we can actually just use it to track the real world and to put any holograms in the world and make it persistent in the world. And so in our project, we actually combine these two technologies together to generate a dynamical object localization method, which will be discussed later. And because we're talking about a collaborative system, so it means that there must be some kinds of data must be shared among all the users. So it means that we have to use a server. And there are also two choices that we can choose. And one is just the Azure Spatial Anchor, which is just can be accessed by the Microsoft. But it is actually not free, and we have to use an external toolkit to build this system with the Azure Spatial Anchor. So actually in our project we just choose a private server, and with this server we can also customize the system features by ourselves to improve our system for the further use. This one is very hard to use. Okay, it's okay. And so our project is mainly based on a greenhouse scenario. The greenhouse are used extensively in scientific research and agriculture trails, and labeling the plant traits using tags such as a QR code and makes them amenable for interactive tracking and data analysis using computer systems. So for example, conventionally for greenhouse workers, if they need to just record the plant data in by using a laptop or using the notebook. And if they move the plant from an old location to a new location, they have to just also inform the further users for the further use. And however, within this system, the greenhouse workers can directly use HoloLens to just directly record for example, the plant location or the plant height and the seed number of that plant. An ideal greenhouse scenario could be shown as in this image. Like as what you can see, there are some greenhouse workers working in the greenhouse, and some of them are moving the plant tray from an old location to a new location, and some of them are also just inputting the plant data. And then, but eventually, all of this plant data would be just shared among all the users throughout this cloud server. And in building this system, we just use the HoloLens device as a head-mounted display, and we use Unity 3D for software rendering, and we directly use the Fourier toolkit, which is embedded in the Unity 3D for the marker-based tracking technology. And for the user interface, we just use the Mixed Reality Toolkit version 2. And for the data transmission and storage, we just use our own private cloud server that I had mentioned. And as what you can see from this image, the left one is just the user interface that we designed for this system. And the top panel is just called plant information panel, and then the bottom panel is just called the plant name panel. And this plant name panel is just used to identify any plant in the greenhouse. And the right one is just a plant name panel, or just a PNP set. PNP set. This PNP set is just used for corresponding to that plant tray that I have shown in the previous slides. And apart from that, it's very hard to use this. And apart from that, we also build a status map in this interface, just for users. If the users think, oh, they don't need that much PNP in this greenhouse, and they could just press any button in this interface to just hide a certain PNP in rendering in their HoloLens. And based on this interface, we also add another function, which is a navigation function, just like this one. And as you can see this navigation view, the blue arrow at the left of this display just indicates the direction of the particular plant being searched for. So, for example, if some user just want to find some plants in a greenhouse, but there are too many plants, so they can directly use this method just to press any button that they want, and then this blue arrow would just directly direct them into that plant. So now let's talk about the system latency. The major problem of the latency comes from the synchronization of the plant location. So because if we want to make sure that all the users can have the same plant location in their HoloLens view, so it means that we must use a component which is called the word anchor. The word anchor is just provided from the Microsoft, and we can directly use them in Unity. And there are two utilizations of this word anchor. One is just to stabilize any holograms in the physical world. And this stabilization could be also applied for the one-for-one locating and one-for-all locating. The one-for-one just means every holograms in the physical world must have their own corresponding word anchor to attach them and to make their stabilize. And the one-for-all just means all of the holograms in the physical world could be only use one word anchor to control their stabilization. And in order to generate a collaborative system, we must use the second utilization of the word anchor, which is to provide the spatial information of that hologram. And we could directly use the local anchor transfer method, which is also the default method recommended by Microsoft and Unity. So with this method, we could just directly generate a one-for-one shared experience, which can be shown in this picture. And as what you can see from this picture, there are 5 plant trays in an example greenhouse in the color of green. And there are also 5 corresponding word anchor in the color of red. And for each of the plant trays, they have their own word anchor. And if, for example, if any user move any plant in this greenhouse, so the latest word anchor could be just directly sent to the other users, and then they can just share the same plant location in case. And but however, we need to care about the size of the word anchor is pretty large, reaching around 10 to 30 megabytes. So it means that it will just produce a really large latency, synchronizing latency, while just sharing the plant location to all the users. So in order to overcome this problem, we just modified the one-for-all locating method to the one-for-all shared experience method, which can be shown in this figure. So as what you can see from the right image, we still have 5 plant trays in the color of green, but now we only have one reference word anchor to attach with them. And now in this case, we just use the Unity word coordinate, which is the offset from the plant tray to that word anchor. And so it means that if any user also just move the plant tray from an old location to a new location, the latest offset could be sent to all the users and make sure that they could see the same location of the plant. And because this offset, the size of the data of this offset is pretty small, which is around like 200 bytes. So it is much smaller than the size of the word anchor. So it means that it would be just much faster than using the one-for-one shared experience, which is the default method recommended by Microsoft. And in order to just prove this hypothesis, we're just doing an experiment to synchronize 8 plan set with one-for-all shared experience method and one-for-one shared experience method. And and the word anchors were also controlled in each method. And here I just showed a sample experiment to synchronize sorry about that. Can I use this one?
Yeah. Which slide?
Oh, last slide. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is just a sample experiment to show that synchronize eight plan set in this experiment, and we just record the time into the server, and we can directly just compare, just plot a graph to make the further comparison. And so from the result, we can get that the latency of the the latency of synchronizing the corresponding PNP set in the system by using one-for-one shared experience method. So from this method, from this plot, we can see that as the number of the plant set are increasing, the latency time are also increasing as well. Like for example, if the PNP set is 8, is at the number of 8, we can see that the latency time is already like 38 seconds. So that's really a large latency time, and yet it is impossible to make it render in a real-time process. However, if we use the one-for-all shared experience method, we can see that whatever the prompt number increase or decrease, the latency time are always kept in a constant, which is around like 8 seconds. And because this one-for-one shared experience method also just contains to synchronize one word anchor. So it means that we could also do a sharp comparison to synchronize only the offset and just ignore that word anchor. So now I just plot another one, just the latency of synchronizing corresponding PNP set with the plant location data only, just that offset. So as what you can see, as the number increase or decrease, the time is also around a constant, which is like 0.05 second. It is much smaller than using the one-for-one shared experience locating method. So next is about the conclusion and the future work. The one-for-one shared experience method is much faster than the one-for-one shared experience method, as what you can see from the results show. And the private cloud server could be also achievable for personal use. So it means that we don't need to use Azure spatial anchor provided by Microsoft because it's not free and much more complicated to when you develop your system. So we could just use the private cloud server. And we also need to compare. So in the further work, if we get chance, we could also compare the actual latency that the Azure spatial anchor uses to compare with our system. And also there is a limitation, the distance limitation of the word anchor of the word anchor, because the word anchor could only control the holograms which are in the region with a radius of 3 meters. So it means that if any holograms are out of that region, we have to use another word anchor to control them to make it more stabilized. So maybe in the future work we could just improve this limitation by using a grid of word anchor set. And that's all my project. Thank you for your attention.